Do you want to be the center of every single team fight, stunning all of your enemies, dealing a ton of early game damage, or even healing yourself and your team? Well, Dynamo is the jack of all trades, and he might be the character for you. And as always, if you're new here or find yourself coming back in the regular and you aren't already, why not subscribe? It's completely free and it greatly helps me out. But anyways, let's get started with this hero guide on Dynamo. Firstly, I just want to give a brief introduction about the character Dynamo. Dynamo is hands down one of the best support heroes in the game. He's a super crucial component of any team fight. That's why as you see him played a lot in higher MMR, Dynamo has two major forms of crowd control, which includes one of the best ults in the game, Singularity. He also has a heal, and he also has an ability to escape with teammates or initiate with teammates. Don't get me wrong, Dynamo can still output a ton of damage even though he's classified as a support character. But anyways, today we're going to be breaking down how to play Dynamo the right way. What is Dynamo's primary role and playstyle? Like I said earlier, Dynamo's primary role is to support his team, and his playstyle is to take fights at close, medium, and long range. His base weapon is actually insane. It does quite a decent amount of damage, and it has a pretty large magazine, making him great for the early stages of laning phase. During the laning phase, you can easily harass opponents from long range. Now you can play him in a solo lane, but it might be a little more difficult depending on who you're laning against. So most often than not, it's better to just try to get into a duo lane. Dynamo's kinetic pulse allows you to lift and slow enemies. Parrying it with a heavy melee does an insane amount of burst damage early on. Now another thing to note is that if you're playing Dynamo, you're going to need to be able to manage a ton of active items. Most of the items that you're going to be buying for Dynamo are primarily active, so for active items, you could definitely go with changing your game items to make it a whole lot easier. But once you have a fully built Dynamo, you're going to want a warp shard and a refresher, and if pulled off correctly, you can easily turn a losing fight into an instant team wipe for the enemies. But if you end up failing this, well then you're probably going to lose the team fight for your team. As if you're playing Dynamo, I feel that your team has to have a lot of trust in you, knowing that you're going to pull off a big ultimate or even heal them in general. Dynamo also has a lot of mobility as well, which is super useful because his ultimate Singularity requires you to get into the center of all of the enemies. Something to note is that at the early stages, both his kinetic pulse and Singularity are on the smaller side of the range. But once you start upgrading your abilities and getting more items, you can slowly increase that range. Dynamo rounds out his support status by having a great healing effect that allows you and your team to stay in the lane during the early game and outlasting your opponents, allowing you and your duo lane to get a ton more souls that you're gonna really need. That's enough about his playstyle. Let's actually dive into the abilities. Dynamo's first ability is called Kinetic Pulse, a short range ability that knocks enemies into the air, and when it comes to upgrading it, with your first ability point put in, it applies 40% movement slow and fire rate slow, and with your second ability point, you do 30% more weapon damage on enemies for 8 seconds. Not only does this ability help you get early kills in lane, but it also lets you chase down enemies and pop them up into the air, and if you combo it with a heavy melee or a charged melee, wherever you want to call it, you can do a ton of damage in a short burst. Dynamo's second ability is Quantum Entanglement, an ability that lets you teleport a short distance away. This is great for getting into fights or even doing your best to try to escape. One thing to know is you can get stuck on walls, so that's probably a feature you should be aware of. But one of the best parts about this ability is that you can teleport your teammates with you. Once upgraded, you get a 25% fire rate bonus and a 12% base ammo bonus. That is when you come out of the Quantum Entanglement. Dynamo's third ability is Rejuvenating Aura, channeling ability that heals 32 HP per second in an AoE. At base level, you can't shoot and you move slower, but something to note is that they recently made a change to where you can actually use stamina while using it. So at the base level, you can roll around however you want, but if you try to jump, shoot, or do anything like that, then well, good luck, you're just a sitting duck. Now again, I just want to emphasize that Dynamo is probably the best played when it's a duo lane, as you really have to choose your timing when it comes to using the healing aura, as you can time when you're going to heal yourself and your teammate, and it's probably best to sit behind cover when using the healing ability. Now once you get your 5th and final ability point and you put it into the healing aura, not only do you get full movement speed when using it, you can shoot, use other abilities, and it also heals an additional 4% of max health per second, which is pretty crazy. Now last but not least is Dynamo's ultimate ability called Singularity. Essentially, you turn yourself into a black hole where it stuns and pulls all nearby enemies closer towards yourself. Now while the enemies are trapped, it deals 60 damage per second, and when the ultimate comes to an end, you knock the enemies up into the air. Something that's useful when it comes to playing Dynamo is the ability to communicate with your team, because if timed properly, you should essentially wipe all of of the enemies, and if you can't wipe them all, then well, that's unfortunate. Now as you upgrade the ultimate ability, you get a larger radius and a longer channel duration. With the 5th and final ability point put into your ultimate ability, you take 3.8% of the enemy's max health per second, which is actually crazy. And if one or more of the enemies aren't killed after using the singularity ability, just hit them with your first ability after it, so you can do even more damage after. How I like to start out my abilities: first I start out with my first ability, the kinetic pulse, then I will get my heal, followed by my quantum entanglement, then the ulti of course. Typically your best options, if you're trying to play the more supporting Dynamo, is maxing out heal and your ultimate as quickly as possible. Now lastly, I want to talk about my preferred build. This is my preferred build called Duck's Magic Carpet Ride. So in the early stages of laning, you have high velocity mag, you have close quarters, you have mystic burst, extra charge, extra health, mystic reach, sprint boost, and healing right. Now once you get 500 right off the start, go straight into high velocity. This allows you to get, soul orbs a whole lot easier. It's also a component of headhunter that you can later build into. You're gonna want close quarters as well, because of course you're gonna be up close, especially with that kinetic pulse, your first ability. And well, that builds into point blank later on. Next, we're gonna use Mystic Burst. So abilities deal bonus spirit damage if they deal 80% damage or more in a single hit. Again, very good for your first ability. It's just overall really good. You also get weapon damage and spirit shield. Now extra charge is great because when you buy it, you get a second kinetic pulse, which is always nice. Then you have extra health, which in the early stages of laning is just a great idea to have. Then you have Mystic Reach, which increases the range and effect radius of your abilities. So your kinetic pulse goes further, your quantum entanglement goes further, your healing is bigger, and your ulti is a little bit bigger as well. Then we're going to get sprint boost, so we get speed and mobility. Healing rate, this is optional when in lane. You can buy it later on if you want to. It's also now a component of Health Nova, which we're going to need for mid game. Then Mystic Shot. Your next bullet deals bonus spirit damage. Mystic Shot is always just a good purchase in general, in my opinion. Then mid game, we're starting with the Health Nova. Again, heal yourself and nearby allies. A great thing to have comboing with your rejuvenating aura. Divine Barrier. Well, Divine Barrier is insane. For 1250, you get 260 bullet shield, 260 spirit shield, plus move speed. It's just a really great active item to have. Slowing bullets are great, especially paired with the Mystic Shot. Bullet Resist Shredder reduces bullet resist on enemies. Headhunter is great, again builds from high velocity. Then you're gonna want Enduring Speed, upgrade from Spirit Boots. Healing Booster, so more healing for your rejuvenating aura, and Health Nova. Bullet Armor is just good to have. Spirit Armor, again good to have. Then we want Rapid Recharge. When we buy it, we get another Kinetic Pulse ability. Faster time between charges, overall really good. Improved burst, a ton of extra spirit damage. Warp Stone, so you can TP, an ulti, something great to have. Improved bullet armor, improved spirit armor, pretty self-explanatory, great to have. You want these abilities from left to right. Everything is left to right. Everything I'm buying is left to right. That's the order you want to buy. Then this is all situational. Debuff is great for pocket ulti to get rid of the affliction. Then we have Unstoppable. So while you're in ulti, or before you pop ulti, so no one can stun you or CC you out of your ulti. We have Refresher. So after you pop your ulti once, cast Refresher, ult again. Now something that I have started doing, which I think is just hilarious and super fun, is actually using Magic Carpet. So I pop Magic Carpet, you go in, right? And then once you're over them, press 4 now, and you slowly glide down with your ulti. It's just something I found useful in my time playing Dynamo. It's just super fun, and people most of the time, they don't expect that. I think now that I've made this video, people will start expecting it. But Magic Carpet gives you plus 10% ability duration, 15 spirit power, and 150 bonus health. And while you're in the Magic Carpet, you get 400 bullet shield and 400 spirit shield health, which is just crazy to me. But again, this is my build called Duck's Magic Carpet Ride. It's public on the browse builds. It's public, so make sure to go ahead and like it. But anyways, hopefully this video has taught you something new and gave you a better understanding of how Dynamo works. Do me a favor, if you like this video, like it, or if you learned something new, subscribe. Have a great day, catch you in the next one.